great training hall of the Galactic Academy was filled with sound. Hundreds of alien cadets gathered inside, each one eager to see the new arrivals. The air shimmered with strange colors from the light of alien eyes and the glow of energy weapons carried by proud young warriors. It was a place of power and a place of pride. The Galactic Academy was known across the stars as the heart of future leaders. Only the strongest and smartest cadets were invited here, and among them, the humans had just been added. It was the first year humanity was allowed to take part. The aliens did not welcome them. Most species believed humans were weak, backward, and unworthy. At the center of the hall, cadets from different worlds laughed and exchanged words of mockery. Their eyes were fixed on one thing. A human cadet carried a small weapon, a weapon that looked almost like a toy. The barrel was short, the body simple, made of dull metal. There was no glowing power core, no humming energy crystal, no advanced targeting system. It looked fragile compared to the massive plasma rifles carried by others. "Is that what you call a weapon?" one reptilian cadet hissed, his sharp teeth shining under the light. "Perhaps it is for scaring children on your world," another added with a cruel laugh. A tall insectoid cadet tapped his long claws on the floor and made a buzzing sound. How can such a species survive with toys in their hands? The laughter spread like wildfire across the hall. Everywhere the human cadet walked, mocking eyes followed. Some pointed and whispered, others openly laughed. To them, humanity was nothing more than a joke. But the human cadet did not answer. He walked with calm steps, his face steady, his eyes sharp. He gripped the weapon firmly, but not in anger. There was no shame in his movement, only silence. This silence made some of the aliens uncomfortable. They expected anger or fear or at least some nervous response. Instead, they were met with a steady gaze, a quiet strength. High above, instructors of the academy watched from the balcony. They saw the mockery, they saw the laughter. One instructor, an old veteran with scars across his face, leaned forward. He had seen humans before, on forgotten battlefields. He whispered to himself, "They do not know what is coming." The announcement was made. Tomorrow the weapon range would be open. Every cadet would demonstrate the power of their species' arms. It was a tradition of the academy. The range test was not just practice, it was pride. It was proof that a cadet and their weapon could represent the strength of their world. The alien cadets cheered, already imagining the humiliation of humans. "Your toy will not even scratch the target," a winged cadet sneered as he passed the human. Another said, "Perhaps the instructors will give you wooden targets, so your little bullets do not bounce away." The laughter grew louder. The human cadet kept walking, his boots echoing against the metal floor. His silence was heavier than any words. The aliens did not understand why he did not defend himself. To them, silence looked like weakness, but in truth, it was something else. As the hall emptied, the human cadet stood at the edge of the great window. Outside the academy, stars burned bright against the endless dark. He lifted the weapon and checked it carefully. Every movement was slow and precise. He touched the barrel, the trigger, the chamber. It was clear this so-called toy was something more to him. It was not just metal and powder. It was history. It was culture. It was a symbol of humanity itself. Memories filled his mind of old stories told by his grandfather, stories of humans who fought with nothing but simple rifles against armies with greater power, stories of battles Here, courage and discipline were stronger than machines. The cadet breathed deeply. He remembered the words of his instructor back on Earth. "The gun is not the weapon. You are the weapon. The gun is only an extension of your will." These words echoed in his heart. The aliens might laugh, but tomorrow the truth would be seen. Across the dorm halls, alien cadets still laughed late into the night. Some placed bets on how badly the human would fail. Others planned to record the moment and share it across the galaxy. The idea of humanity bringing a toy gun to the academy became a joke repeated in every corner. The whole academy was waiting for the show, but none of them understood what they were truly about to witness. When the human cadet lay down to rest, he did not think of their laughter. He thought of the target range. He thought of the silence before the first shot. He thought of the pride of his people. He whispered to himself, "Tomorrow, they will learn." The stars outside burned brighter as if they too were watching, and in that silence, the laughter of the cadets faded into the distance. The stage was set, the pride of the galaxy stood ready to be challenged, and one human cadet, with a simple weapon in his hand, carried the weight of humanity's honor into tomorrow. The next morning, the training grounds of the Galactic Academy were alive with energy. Rows of targets stretched across a wide valley, glowing under artificial suns. Metal frames, moving dummies, armored walls, and even shielded drones floated in place, waiting to be tested. This was the great range of the Academy, where every species proved the strength of its weapons. Alien cadets lined up in formation, each one eager to display their might. The stands above the range were filled with instructors, commanders, and council observers. They came not only to judge the cadets, but to measure the worth of each species. It was a contest of pride, and no one wanted to leave defeated. Tishain. Laughter from last night still echoed in whispers. Every glance toward the human cadet carried the same mocking tone. The small metal weapon strapped to his side looked even weaker in the bright light of morning, compared to the humming cannons, glowing staffs, and heavy plasma rifles of the others. It was like a toy in a child's hand. The first cadet stepped forward, a scaled warrior from the Dracta species. He roared and fired his plasma rifle, the beam cutting through steel targets with molten precision. The crowd of aliens cheered, pride swelling as the targets melted under the heat. Next, a four-armed insectoid cadet unleashed a storm of crystal shards from her launcher. The shards tore into moving dummies, shredding them until nothing remained but sparks and dust. The cheers grew louder, echoing across the valley like thunder. One by one, cadets took their turns. Each display was more dramatic than the last. Sonic cannons split targets into fragments. Energy whips cracked across armored walls, leaving molten scars. Mass driver railguns punched through multiple layers of shielding. Every species roared with pride as their cadets demonstrated power and destruction. But when the humans were called forward, silence spread like a shadow. The crowd leaned forward, waiting for the show they believed would be the most laughable of all. The human cadet walked slowly toward the firing line, boots steady against the floor. The small gun rested in his hand, quiet, simple, cold metal against his skin. No glow, no hum, no sound of charging energy, just silence. From the stands, whispers rose again. "Why do they allow this?" one alien muttered. "Let us end the farce," said another. But the instructors did not intervene. The test must be completed, and every cadet deserved a chance. The human stopped at the line. He looked at the rows of targets, stationary ones, moving ones, shielded ones, stretching far into the valley. He breathed in deeply, steadying himself. His weapon clicked as he loaded a single round, the sound strangely loud in the silence. The aliens began to laugh once more, but their laughter was softer than before. There was something in the human's movements that unsettled them. His grip was sure, his stance unshaken, his eyes calm. He did not look like a fool holding a toy. He looked like a soldier preparing for war. The instructor raised his hand, signaling the start of the test. A long horn echoed across the valley, and the range came alive. Targets began to move, walls shifted, drones activated their shields. The other cadets had required heavy weapons, long reloads, and glowing cores to break these defenses. The human had only one weapon, one bullet ready. He lifted the gun. The air felt heavy, the silence pressing against the ears of everyone watching. The aliens waited for a laughable failure, for a misfire, for a weak spark. Instead, they saw the human's finger squeeze the trigger. The crack of the shot tore through the air, sharp and sudden like lightning in the middle of silence. A single target at long distance shuddered, then fell with a perfect hole through its bullseye. The alien laughter stopped. Gasps replaced it. The human had not missed. He had not even hesitated. The cadet reloaded with calm hands. Another crack of the shot. A moving drone spun in the air and dropped, pierced through its core. Another reload, another shot. A shielded target flickered as the bullet found its weak point. Every shot was precise, every movement controlled. There was no wasted energy, no dramatic explosions, only sharp cracks of bullets, each one finding its mark. The crowd stared in disbelief. This was not luck, this was mastery. Aliens who had mocked now sat in silence, their pride shaken, their confidence cracked. They had believed the human weapon was a toy, but the targets told a different story. Up in the stands, the scarred instructor leaned forward. He remembered the human wars of old. He whispered again, this time louder. Now they will learn. The other instructors exchanged uneasy glances. If this was only the beginning, what else were humans hiding? The human cadet lowered his weapon. The test was not over, but the silence in the valley was already victory. For the first time, the aliens were not laughing. They were watching with wide eyes, uncertain of what would come next. The horn sounded again, signaling the second round of the trial. Targets became faster, smaller, harder to hit. The true test was about to begin, and as the human cadet reloaded once more, calm as the stars above, every alien in the academy realized they were not watching a toy. They were watching a truth they had been too proud to see. The second round of the test began. The range was no longer calm. Targets moved with unpredictable speed, some flying, some darting behind armored shields, some vanishing and reappearing at random. The air buzzed with energy fields as new defenses activated, making the challenge far harder than before. Alien cadets leaned forward, eager to see the human finally fail. "Precision cannot last against chaos," one whispered with a grin. Another hissed, "The toy gun will break and the human pride will shatter." But their smiles were weak, hidden behind nervous eyes. The memory of the first round, those perfect shots, was still too fresh. The human cadet stood at the firing line, his face calm, his chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. He did not look left or right. He did not notice the stares of hundreds of aliens. His entire focus was on the range. The weapon in his hand looked simple, but in his eyes it was alive, an extension of his will. The first target appeared, a drone weaving through the sky at impossible speed. The human raised the gun. A single crack split the air. The drone spiraled down in silence, smoke trailing from a perfect shot through its engine. Gasps rose from the stands. No alien weapon had managed to bring down such a drone with a single strike before. The next target appeared, a wall of armor sliding into place, thicker than any natural metal. A small circle of weakness glowed faintly at its center. Many cadets had wasted heavy plasma rounds trying to penetrate it. The human cadet adjusted his aim, squeezed the trigger. The bullet hit the glowing weak spot. The wall cracked, then split open with a groan of defeat. The silence deepened. One by one, the targets appeared, each harder than the last, moving, hiding, shielding, spinning. Each time, the result was the same. One bullet, one shot, one kill. The sound of the gun was sharp, steady, and unrelenting, like the beating of a war drum no one could ignore. The crowd no longer laughed. No one mocked. No one whispered. There was only silence. Silence so heavy it pressed on the hearts of every cadet watching. They realized they were not just seeing skill. They were seeing something terrifying, something that shook the pride of every species in the academy. From the balcony above, the council observers exchanged uneasy words. "This precision, it is not natural," one muttered. Another answered, "It is not the weapon, it is the user." And a third whispered, "If this is what they achieve with toys, what would their real weapons do?" The alien cadets shifted uncomfortably, their claws, wings, and tails restless. They had come expecting a comedy. Now they sat as unwilling witnesses to a truth they did not want to face. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not primitive. Humanity was dangerous. The final stage of the second round activated. 10 targets appeared at once, flying in every direction, shields glowing, their movements wild. Gasps filled the air. Even the strongest cadets had failed at this stage. It was meant to be impossible, but the human cadet did not hesitate. He reloaded, lifted the gun and fired. One shot, one down. Second shot, another target shattered. Third, fourth, fifth, each bullet tearing through a drone. His movements were quick but never rushed. His breathing calm, his focus unbroken. By the time the seventh shot rang out, silence had consumed the academy. The last 3 drones tried to escape, weaving together, shields flickering, but the human cadet adjusted, fired, and dropped them one after the other. 10 shots, 10 kills, perfect, absolute, final. The range fell quiet as the last drone crashed to the floor. The human lowered his weapon, his face still calm. He did not smile, he did not gloat, he simply waited, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But the crowd was frozen, the cadets could not cheer. The instructors could not speak. Even the counselors were silent. The laughter that had filled the halls the night before was gone, replaced by fear and disbelief. A strange silence hung heavy in the academy, a silence born not from respect, but from realization. The alien cadets understood now. What they had mocked was no toy. What they had dismissed was no weakness. They had just witnessed something their advanced weapons could not match. Humanity's strength was not in glowing cores or massive cannons. It was in the steady hand, the sharp eye, the unshakable will, a will that could turn even the simplest weapon into perfection. The scarred instructor stood slowly, his voice carrying across the valley. "You see now why I warned you," he said. "The weapon is not the danger, the human is the danger." His words struck like thunder, and every cadet who had laughed the night before lowered their eyes in shame. The silence continued as the human cadet left the line. He walked with the same calm steps, weapon resting by his side. No cheers, no applause, only silence. The academy was no longer laughing. The academy was now afraid. The valley was quiet after the second round. No one cheered, no one laughed. No one moved. The alien cadets sat frozen, their pride cracked like glass under a hammer. They had seen perfection, but they could not accept it. The horn sounded again, deep and heavy. It announced the third round, the final stage of the trial. This was no ordinary test. The last stage was designed to break cadets, to show them their limits. Only the best of the best could survive it. Many species had failed here, and yet the human cadet stepped forward without fear. The range changed before their eyes. The ground shifted. Metal walls rose and moved like a maze. Flying drones appeared in swarms, their shields glowing bright. Armored targets rolled forward, heavy and unstoppable. The challenge was chaos itself, designed to overwhelm any mind. The cadets whispered nervously. "This time he will fail," one muttered. Another hissed. "No one can hit them all, not even with real weapons." But the human cadet did not flinch. He checked his weapon, slid fresh rounds into the chamber, and raised it with steady hands. The silence deepened. The air itself seemed to wait. Every eye in the academy focused on him. This was the moment they believed the toy would finally break. The first drone shot into the air, weaving fast. The human fired. The bullet cracked across the sky, and the drone exploded in sparks. Gasps filled the valley. Before the sound even faded, a rolling armored target thundered across the ground. The cadet shifted his aim, squeezed the trigger. The bullet struck its wheel joint. The massive machine toppled with a crash. The crowd's disbelief grew heavier. Then came the swarm, 10 drones flying together, shields pulsing, twisting through the air like angry insects. The human did not rush. He reloaded calmly, lifted the gun, and fired. One drone fell, then another, each shot clean, each shot perfect. The swarm broke apart as if guided by fate, 7 seconds law. Tear. Nothing was left but broken metal smoking on the ground. The cadets could not breathe. They had never seen such control, such power. Their own weapons sprayed fire wildly, wasting energy to destroy only half of what the human had just crushed with a few simple bullets. The instructors shifted uncomfortably. Even the counselors above leaned forward in silence, their eyes sharp and cold. The test was not finished. The final targets emerged from hidden compartments, 3 armored drones carrying shifting shields designed to block plasma, rail fire, even sonic waves. It was the most feared part of the trial, a challenge that humiliated even the strongest cadets. The crowd leaned forward, whispering, "Now he will fail. He must fail." The human cadet stood alone on the line. He breathed deeply, lowered his stance, and aimed. One drone zigzagged across the air, shield flashing. The cadet tracked its movement, pulled the trigger. The bullet cut through the opening between shield flickers, piercing its core. The drone fell burning. Gasps rang out again. It was impossible, yet it had just happened. The second drone charged, its shield spinning like a storm. The cadet waited, patient, his eyes sharp as stone. He fired. The bullet curved through the storm at the exact moment the shield opened for cooling. The drone exploded in midair. The silence became unbearable. Every cadet knew what they had seen was not luck, it was mastery. The third drone hovered high, its shield pattern shifting in random chaos. Even the instructors frowned, knowing this target was close to invincible. The human steadied himself, reloaded, and aimed. The entire academy held its breath. The trigger was pulled, the bullet fired. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the drone shuddered, its shield shattered, and it dropped like a falling star. The valley erupted, not in cheers, but in stunned silence. That felt louder than any roar. The human cadet lowered his weapon. Smoke drifted from the barrel. His face was calm, his breathing steady. He did not smile, he did not gloat. He simply stood waiting, as though this had been expected. The instructors looked at one another. The scarred veteran spoke first, his voice rough. "Do you understand now?" he said to the crowd. "This is not a toy. This is discipline. This is will. This is humanity." The words echoed like thunder. The cadets bowed their heads, unable to meet the humans' eyes. In the council balcony, one elder leaned to another and whispered, "If this is their toy, then what do their true weapons look like?" The question hung in the air like a shadow, and no one dared to answer it. The human cadet stepped back from the line. The trial was over, the results undeniable. Humanity had shattered the pride of the galaxy with a single gun. But deep in the silence, every alien mind carried the same thought. If one human cadet with one simple weapon could do this, what would happen when all of humanity arrived? The sound of the last drone crashing still echoed across the valley. Shards of broken metal smoked on the ground, a reminder of what had just happened. No alien cadet spoke, no instructor moved, no counselor cleared their throat. The silence was thick, like a storm waiting to break. Every species in the academy had sent their best cadets. They had come with pride, carrying the most advanced weapons of their worlds: plasma rifles, rail cannons, sonic lances, and energy bows, all glowing, humming, and alive with power. But none of them had matched the human cadet with his so-called toy. One by one, their pride was shattered like the drones lying across the range. The reptilian cadets, once loud and mocking, now kept their eyes on the ground. The insectoids, who had laughed with clicking claws, folded their wings in shame. Even the tall armored species whose railguns had torn holes in steel avoided the humans' gaze. They had thought themselves superior. Now they felt small. The human HFY had not only passed the test, he had destroyed their confidence. From the balcony, the counselors sat frozen. Their whispers were sharp, filled with unease. "This is no coincidence," one murmured. Another said, "A weapon is only as strong as the one who wields it, and these humans, they wield with perfection." The scarred instructor finally spoke, his voice carrying across the valley like a war horn. "You mocked them, you laughed at them, but today you have learned the truth." His words pierced every heart in the academy. The human cadet stood still, his weapon at his side. He was not smiling, not proud, not arrogant. He looked calm, as if what he had done was nothing unusual. That calmness was worse than any boast. It told the aliens that this display was not a miracle. It was normal for a human. A wave of fear rippled through the cadets. If this was normal, then what were humans truly capable of? If one cadet could shatter the trial with a single weapon, what could an army of them do? The thought burned in their minds like fire, and for the first time in centuries, the pride of the galaxy was shaken. The instructors whispered among themselves. Some spoke of rewriting the Academy's trials. Others spoke of banning the human weapon, but the scarred veteran shook his head. "It is not the gun," he said. "It is the hand, the mind, the will behind it." His words silenced them all. The crowd of cadets shifted uncomfortably. Some clenched their claws. Others tightened their wings. A few still tried to whisper excuses. "The targets were weak," one said. "The shields were faulty," another muttered. But their voices carried no strength. They knew the truth. The human cadet had done what none of them could. At the far edge of the stands, a young alien cadet whispered to his friend, "If this is their toy, then what happens when they bring their real weapons?" His words spread like smoke. Others heard, others repeated. The question grew larger, darker, heavier. No one could answer it, and the fear settled deeper. The human cadet finally stepped back from the line. The range master raised a hand to declare the results, but even before the words were spoken, everyone knew the human had achieved perfection. The human had broken the trial. The human had crushed the pride of the Academy. The declaration echoed across the valley. "Human cadet, flawless victory." The words hit like thunder. Some cadets lowered their heads in shame. Some clenched their teeth in anger, but all of them knew they had just witnessed something history would not forget. Above, the counselors exchanged worried looks. The Academy was meant to be a place of unity, of equal competition, but now the balance was broken. One species had risen above the rest, not with strength of machines, but with precision of mind and will, and that was far more dangerous. The human cadet walked back across the field. Every step was steady, calm, unhurried. He carried no pride in his face, but his silence spoke louder than any words. It was the silence of a victor who did not need to boast. It was the silence of someone who knew the galaxy would never see him the same again. That night, the academy was not filled with laughter. The dorms were quiet, the halls heavy. The story of the humans' shot spread through every corner. Cadets whispered it in fear. Instructors spoke of it in disbelief. Counselors carried it in secret reports back to their homeworlds. The truth was now loose. The truth could not be hidden. Humanity had shattered the pride of the galaxy, and the galaxy would never forget. The night after the trial was heavy with silence. The halls of the Galactic Academy, once filled with laughter and boasting, now carried only whispers. Cadets who had mocked humans avoided speaking the name at all. Everywhere the story spread, the human cadet with the toy gun had done the impossible. In the council chambers above the academy, leaders gathered in secret. Holograms of the trial played again and again, each shot from the human replayed in slow motion. No matter how many times they studied it, the truth remained. There was no error, no trick, no luck. Every bullet had been perfect. Every strike had been deliberate. One counselor, his voice sharp with unease, said, "This was no weapon demonstration. This was a lesson." Another muttered, "We mocked their gun, but the danger was never the metal, it was the human behind it." The scarred instructor, standing with folded arms, finally spoke. "I told you before, the weapon is not the threat, the human is the threat." His voice echoed in the chamber like thunder rolling across a battlefield. While the leaders debated, the cadets whispered in the dorms. Some refused to believe what they had seen. "It was a trick," one hissed. "The targets were tampered with," another muttered. But deep inside, they knew the truth. Excuses could not erase what their eyes had seen. Excuses could not silence the fear building in their hearts. The human cadet sat alone in his quarters, the weapon resting on the table. He cleaned it slowly, carefully, as if each piece carried a memory. He did not think of victory. He did not think of glory. He thought of Earth, of long nights of training, of voices from his people saying, "The gun is not the weapon. You are the weapon." Those words guided his every shot. Those words were the truth of humanity. The next morning, the academy assembled for the announcement of rankings. Every cadet stood in silence. Normally, the air was filled with pride, with roars of celebration, with loud cheers of victory. But this day was different. The silence was heavier than stone. The master of the range stepped forward, his voice steady. "By tradition, we rank cadets not only by their scores, but by their discipline, their control, and their strength." He paused, looking over the crowd. This year, one cadet has surpassed every expectation. His gaze turned toward the human. This year, the highest honor belongs to humanity. The words dropped like a hammer. The alien cadets lowered their eyes, unable to look at the human. Some clenched their fists in anger, some trembled in fear, but none could deny the truth. Humanity had risen, and the galaxy had seen it. The scarred instructor addressed the crowd, his voice deep. "You saw their weapon, simple metal, no glowing core, no humming charge. But it was not the weapon that shattered the trial, it was the human hand. The truth is this: power does not come from machines, power comes from will." His words struck like fire. The cadets shifted, restless, unable to argue, because they had seen it with their own eyes. The counselors looked uneasy. They had hoped the academy would humble humans. Instead, humans had humbled the academy. One whispered, "If they can do this with toys, then what would happen in war?" Another said, "Their precision is their weapon, their discipline, their shield, their will, their strength." And a third whispered, "Perhaps we were fools to let them in." The human cadet did not speak. He simply bowed his head, accepting the honor without pride. He did not need words. His silence carried the weight of his people. It was the silence of discipline, the silence of history, the silence of a truth the galaxy could no longer ignore. That night, across alien worlds, the story spread. Messages carried the tale of the human cadet and his toy gun. On distant planets, leaders frowned, commanders shifted in worry, soldiers whispered. Some dismissed it as rumor, but others trembled, because deep inside, they knew it was not rumor. It was warning. The galaxy now understood something terrible. Humanity did not need massive weapons to win. Humanity did not need glowing machines to inspire fear. Humanity only needed a steady hand, a sharp eye, and a will that never broke. And that truth was more frightening than any cannon or bomb. The Academy had wanted to test humanity. Instead, humanity had revealed itself, not with pride, not with arrogance, but with silence, precision, and discipline. The truth of the weapon was clear. The gun was not the weapon, the human was the weapon. The council chamber above the Galactic Academy was darker than usual. Tall pillars cast long shadows across the polished floor. The air was heavy, as if the very walls carried the weight of what had happened. Counselors from dozens of species sat in silence, their faces grim, their voices hushed. The trial was finished, but the echoes of it had not ended. Every planet had already received the report. Every fleet commander had already watched the recordings, and every ruler now asked the same question. What happens if the humans bring more than one cadet? The scarred instructor stood before the council, his arms behind his back. He repeated the words he had said to the cadets. The gun is not the weapon. The human is the weapon. His voice rang through the chamber like iron striking stone. Some counselors shifted uncomfortably, others leaned forward, their eyes sharp, but none of them dared to deny his words. Across the galaxy, whispers spread like wildfire. On distant colonies, soldiers replayed the footage of a single human cadet destroying targets with impossible precision. On border worlds, commanders warned their troops to never underestimate Earth. Even among the common people, rumors grew. They call their weapons toys, yet their toys are sharper than our blades. They carry silence in their hearts, but that silence hides thunder. In the Academy itself, alien cadets could no longer meet the human's gaze. Those who once mocked him now moved. Aside when he passed, those who laughed at his weapon now stared at it with unease. The human did not gloat, he did not boast. He walked calmly, as if nothing had changed. But everyone knew everything had changed. At night, some cadets whispered in fear. What if humans have ships filled with these weapons? What if their armies are trained like him? One voice always rose above the rest, trembling. If this was their toy, what are they hiding? No one answered. No one could. The counselors debated late into the night. One demanded, "We must restrict humanity's weapons." Another argued, "It is useless. They will only build more." A third whispered, "Perhaps we should fear less the weapon and more the mind behind it." Silence followed, because all of them knew it was true. Humanity had shown not just strength, but something deeper. Discipline, patience, will. And that was harder to defeat than any machine. The scarred instructor spoke again, his eyes fixed on the counselors. You invited them here to measure their worth. Now you have seen it. You thought they would fail, yet they succeeded where others fell. And you still ask if they are dangerous. He shook his head slowly. They are not dangerous because of their weapons. They are dangerous because they do not give up. The counselors exchanged uneasy glances. Some feared war, others feared rebellion. But deep inside, one truth settled into their hearts. If humanity chose to rise, no one could stand in their way. The human cadet stood alone in his quarters once more. He placed his weapon on the table, cleaned it, and set it aside. Outside his window, the stars stretched endlessly, worlds filled with life, with empires, with armies. He whispered softly, words only he could hear. They thought it was a toy. He paused, his eyes calm. But tomorrow they will learn it was only the beginning. Far above, the counselors ended their meeting. Their final words carried fear wrapped in silence. Humanity has awakened, and across the galaxy those words spread faster than any ship. They reached leaders, soldiers, and common folk alike. And everywhere the reaction was the same, fear, because in one trial with one cadet, with one so-called toy, humanity had shattered pride, rewritten the rules, and carved its place into the stars. The galaxy had laughed at humans. Now the galaxy trembled, and deep in their hearts, every species knew the age of mocking humanity was over.